Hello and welcome to another episode of ProtoMet's First Impressions, where I talk about my thoughts on the first episode of any new tokusatsu show. And in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the first episode of Ultraman Geed. I wanted to say Geed, because for whatever reason, whenever I look at that name and how it's spelled, I just think a hard G rather than a soft one. Whatever. That's on me. So, now right off the bat, I am going to talk about episode spoilers, as I usually do. So, if you don't want some spoilers to be ruined for you, go check out the first episode. It's up on Crunchyroll, free to watch. That's actually why this video is technically a week late, because I don't have premium membership on Crunchyroll, so I have to wait a week for new episodes. So that's why I couldn't cover this last week. Anyway, so the first spoiler that we'll talk about is actually the plot twist at the end of the first episode, which really isn't too much of a plot twist if you've actually been paying attention to the news relating to the show's release. And that is that the lead character is Ultraman Belial's son, with a 99.9% probability. That's actually what they say in the episode. That's interesting. Well, it's not the first time that we've had a child of an Ultraman as a hero. Take, for example, Ultraman Zero, which I do not have a figure of. Darn. So I can't use that. But this is the first one that has starred in a TV show. And also the first one to not actually be aware of his own lineage. So this episode is actually him learning about stuff for the first time. Not necessarily that he is Belial's son, because that hasn't been revealed to him yet, just to the audience and one other character. But so I like that. I like the fact that they took a villain character, a notoriously horrid villain character from the series, and gave him a son. Because second spoiler is actually a bit less of a spoiler than that, because it happens at the very first... It happens at the beginning of the very first episode. And that is that Ultraman Belial, this guy, evil Ultraman extraordinaire, destroyed the universe! Apparently. That is actually how the first episode starts. With Belial destroying the universe. Can't say that I was expecting that. Not gonna lie. That was a shock. I was like, woo. So that's interesting. So we start from the fact that Belial destroyed the universe, and then we cut to, I guess, 6 years later, after it, in which the humans on Earth are referring to the event as Deep Impact, and aren't entirely sure what actually happened. And because the universe doesn't appear to have been destroyed, we're kind of left wondering what the heck ourselves. I don't know. Do you know? If you're the writer of the show, you probably know, but I don't. And I'm interested to see what's going on with that. That is interesting. The lead character, Riku Asakura, who, as it turns out, is Ultraman Geed. Geed coming from, I guess, standing around doing nothing or something. I didn't really get that, but whatever. At least this is an Ultraman that's coming up with his own Ultraman name, so that's cool. So this story is essentially him finding the secret base and the ability to turn into his true Ultraman form. Not previously knowing that he even was an Ultraman. He thought he was a human, albeit with some pretty remarkable abilities, such as jumping a little and banging his head on the ceiling, which is actually how we're introduced to the character in the episode. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he discovers his past and deals with it. The ability to turn into what is essentially a composite of two Ultramans. In this episode, it's the first Ultraman and Belle is actually very reminiscent of last season Ultraman Orb, who was able to do the same thing, albeit with cards rather than DNA capsules or whatever. But what is the very interesting part, and what wasn't done last year, aside from a couple instances, was fusion monsters. Taking classic monsters and putting them into one. Now, I know fusion monsters aren't a new thing to the Ultra series. I mean, you gotta go way back to Ultraman Taro and the introduction of Tyrant, who was a disappointing monster, to be completely honest, to get fusion monsters, and they've shown up here and there. But it's very rare that we get a combination of just two monsters, and a villain is responsible for it. There is a villain, I don't know who it is. I think I have an idea of who it is, but I'll keep that a secret just in case that turns out to actually be a spoiler. So I'll keep mum about that, but if I'm wrong, then I'll be pleasantly surprised. If I'm right, I'll be, yeah, cool. But yeah, so yeah, who's the villain? I don't know. We see him create the fusion monster, which is a combination of a Red King and Gomera. I don't even want to imagine how that came about. Let's just leave it at that. No, all kidding aside, it's explained as being essentially the same method as how Geed turns into Ultraman by combining DNAs of two Ultras, but in this case it's the DNAs of two monsters. So throughout the episode, the monster is basically destroying stuff and causing people to evacuate their homes and where they live or work and whatever. And that's actually kind of a serious tone for an Ultra show. I wasn't expecting that. That was actually pretty interesting. Seeing the people who are actually affected by the monster attacks. That's actually kind of, I don't want to say cool, but it's very interesting. I don't want to say cool because that would be kind of insensitive, but it's interesting. Now, from what I gathered from the first episode, it seems that the monster, Skull Gomera, is what it's called, seems to be after a specific person, as we see through its view something glowing that it seems to be pursuing. That'll be interesting, but I think that mystery will get solved next episode. I think, going by the next episode preview, so I'll just leave it there and kind of wait on it a bit. Overall, this was a fun first episode. It presented plenty of intrigue and mystery, and I'm genuinely interested in seeing more of it and seeing how the story develops. Especially now that I know that a novel writer wrote this series, so that'll be interesting. Oh, and as just a side note, I kind of hope that the Tokusatsu show that Riku and his alien buddy in the episode are watching, I kind of hope that becomes like its own spin-off show and actually becomes a show, because I'd watch that. We didn't really see a whole lot of it, and it wasn't fully explored, but I'd watch some of that just to see the concept of a fake show become a real show. That would be interesting, but that's not really relevant to the show proper. So I honestly recommend going and checking out Ultraman Geed. I wanted to say Geed again. Geed, Ultraman Geed. The G in the name is throwing me off. I'm rambling. Go check this out. It's not down in the description. I didn't put it there. Go to Crunchyroll. They're streaming that here in the States. So go check that out. The first episode is fully free, and I don't know if they still have it up, but last week they had episode 0, which was kind of a recap of some stuff and kind of information you probably should know going into this, just as like a refresher of who Ultraman Belle is. So that was interesting. Go check those out. This has been me, ProtoMet, giving my first impressions on Ultraman Geed. See ya!